Here's the final brief. News from the world over this week. For the first time in 20 years, a Democrat has won a Senate seat in Alabama. Doug Jones eked out a win over the controversial GOP candidate Roy Moore, 49.9% to 48.4%. This despite a late push and backing by President Trump and party leaders. Democrats turned out in record numbers to defeat Moore. As for Judge Moore himself, the former Alabama Supreme Court judge could not shake lurid sexual allegations, some dating back 40 years. Some 23,000 voters chose a write-in candidate. Those votes alone were enough to flip the election outcome. The GOP loss narrows its Senate majority to 51 seats, to the Democrats' 49. Jones is expected to take office in early January. There is some good news for Republicans this week. The GOP historic tax cut and reform plan was approved by a conference committee of the U.S. House and Senate. According to reports, the compromise measure keeps several popular deductions that were eliminated in earlier versions of the legislation. Among them, state and local taxes and interest on home mortgages are deductible up to a combined $10,000. Deductions for higher education and medical expenses are also in. Overall, individual taxes are cut across all income levels, with the top tax bracket sitting at 37%. That's down from 39.6%. The corporate tax rate was bumped up to 21%, much lower than the current 35%. At the White House, Trump was hopeful that a tax overhaul would get to his desk by Christmas, noting that the IRS could implement the new law as soon as February.
We're going to make our tax system work for you again. We're going to make our economy work for you again. And we are going to make the American dream. And that's the real dream. That will be the dream that you want for your children and your grandchildren once again.
Democrats continue to uniformly oppose the measure, criticizing it as a deficit-exploding corporate giveaway. Congressional leaders say a vote to send the measure to the president is expected on Tuesday. And Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has canceled a scheduled meeting with Vice President Mike Pence during his Middle East visit later in December. A spokesman for the Palestinian Authority made the announcement just days after President Trump heralded the U.S. decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. According to Abbas, the United States is no longer qualified to sponsor the peace process. A White House spokesman said Vice President Pence still plans to meet with Abbas, saying it would be counterproductive for the Palestinian leader to cancel the appointment. The Imam of Cairo's Al-Azhar Mosque and Coptic Pope Tewodros II have also declined meetings with Pence over the Jerusalem controversy. And a federal court has denied the Archdiocese of Washington's request to run its Christmas bus ads. As reported here previously, the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority declined to run the campaign ad depicting a Star of Bethlehem scene with the caption, "Find the Perfect Gift." The ad directs people to a Christmas-themed website run by the Archdiocese. Since 2015, Metro has said, or rather has insisted, they have a standing policy prohibiting the promotion of religion in advertisements, though they have, for a long time, run the Easter campaign by the D.C. Archdiocese. But in this case, the U.S. District Judge ruled against the Archdiocese, saying that it was unlikely the case would succeed on religious freedom or freedom of speech grounds. A spokesman for the Archdiocese of Washington said the ruling was disappointing, but they continue to pursue and defend their right to share the important message of Christmas in the public square. And with a recent clarification from the Vatican that some divorced and remarried Catholics should be admitted to Holy Communion, German Cardinal Walter Kasper has declared that the controversy regarding Amoris Laetitia has come to an end. Kasper, who has been the proto-advocate for Pope Francis on the controversial application of church teaching, also asserted that in his view, this is the only correct interpretation of that synodal meeting of the bishops and the subsequent teaching by the Pope. Pope Francis has said as much in a 2016 letter to the bishops of Buenos Aires. In an op-ed for Vatican Radio, Kasper said the painful dispute is hopefully over after the official publication of the letter from Pope Francis, where he declared that the Argentinian bishop's interpretation of the issue was correct. Cardinal Kasper further accused the critics of Amoris Laetitia of falling prey to one-sided moral objectivism that underestimates the importance of the personal conscience in the moral act. He compared the question to the distinction in secular law between murder and manslaughter. I'm not sure I follow that. Vatican reform under Pope Francis is showing some uneven progress, and it's facing continued criticism on a few new fronts. This week, European financial evaluators from Moneyval issued a statement that in part commended the Vatican for financial reforms, specifically its efforts in flagging suspicious transactions. However, it was once again faulted for not prosecuting any money laundering cases. Initiated by Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, the Vatican has been attempting to shed its image as a tax haven for shady business practices and to comply with international norms on money laundering and terrorist financing. The Moneyval report repeated the main complaint made in 2015, principally that although the Vatican prosecutors were freezing assets when they received reports of suspicious transactions, they weren't following through with prosecutions. In recent years, more than half its 69 suspicious cases were closed without charges or an indictment, and not one money laundering case has come to indictment, much less trial. And a prominent sex abuse survivor is resigning from Pope Francis's Child Protection Commission. Peter Saunders, who had taken a leave from the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors last year, told the Catholic publication The Tablet that he is stepping down from the body in frustration at the slow pace of reform. Saunders did not mince words, saying, quote, "I thought the Pope was serious about kicking backsides and holding people to account. I believe the Church deserves better on this." Saunders' departure means there are no longer any abuse survivors on the Vatican Commission. Stateside, the Archdiocese of New York recently announced it has paid out $40 million to 189 victims of clergy sexual abuse. The settlement was done as part of its Independent Reconciliation and Compensation Program. The program is part of an ongoing effort to, quote, renew contrition and bring healing to victims of sexual abuse by priests and deacons. According to the Archdiocese, the program is funded through a long-term loan and not through diocesan assessments, parish, or charitable funds. And some sad news to report. Franciscan friar Father Andrew Apostoli has passed away after a battle with cancer. He was 75 years old. Father Apostoli was a founding member of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, a regular guest on many EWTN programs, including this one, and host of Sunday Night Prime here on EWTN. Born in New Jersey in 1942, Apostoli was ordained a priest in 1967 by Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. And there's not been much mention of the fact that he eventually became the vice postulator of Sheen's cause for canonization. He even got me involved in the cause. He first appeared on EWTN with Mother Angelica in 1993 with his fellow CFRer, Father Benedict Rochelle. Father Andrew Apostoli served as a teacher, a retreat leader, a spiritual director to many, including me. He authored several books and was a leading expert on the apparitions of Fatima. He will be greatly missed. I remember the first story I did on Father Andrew. It was the first story I did for the world over. We went to one of their friaries and he said, "Come visit, you can stay with us." Well, I didn't realize it was a homeless shelter, and it was the first and only night I've spent so far not only serving homeless people, but sleeping and living among them. I thank Father Andrew for that and so many experiences. Please keep his family and fellow friars in your prayers. And may Father Andrew Apostoli rest in peace. And I want to draw your attention to a story you should know about. In Haiti, the Caribbean island nation was hit hard 8 years ago by that devastating earthquake. It killed upwards of 200,000 people. Many of those citizens were too poor to bury their loved ones. An amazing group of men there have stepped in to offer some dignity to those still suffering families. Catherine Porter, writing in the New York Times, tells the story of Father Rick Frechette, an American priest and a doctor who founded St. Luke Foundation for Haiti. It's a charitable organization founded in 2000 to help the island's poorest. And Father Frechette and his team have been working tirelessly to collect the abandoned dead for a dignified burial. You should read the story. It's in the Wednesday edition, the December 13th edition of the New York Times, an amazing work of mercy.